everyone, you are so welcome this evening to our De-Stress and Prep. We are in FYMMO, are in collaboration this evening with the Students' Union and the Student Learning Centre. So we have a very informative and lovely chat planned for you this evening. I just want to say very welcome to you all, and if you have any comments, questions or information, just pop it into the chat there and we'll have questions at the end of the session. I'm going to pass you on to our lovely Education Officer, Rachel, to make further introductions.
Thanks, Louisa. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel. I'm your SU Education Officer, and I just collaborated today with Loreto and Jade Walsh in the Student Learning Centre. They're basically your go-to for everything for if you're stressed about CAs and things like that. And so they've come today with a lot of exam prep for the small number of you guys doing exams, and for everyone else doing your final CAs and projects. They've got a lot of great information on how to work through them and also make sure that you're managing your stress and looking after yourself. So I'm going to hand it over to Loreto and Jade.
Thanks so much, Rachel, for that, and Louisa. So we might get started there, Loreto, if that's okay. So I'm Jade, and I work in the Student Learning Centre, as Rachel was saying. And myself and my colleague Loreto are going to be delivering this webinar today on exam preparation and final assessments. So we're just going to give you a kind of general overview on how to manage, your final kind of tasks for your projects, for your essays, etc. And also for your exams as well. But just keep in mind, to focus on kind of what your lecturers are saying, any kind of tips or hints they're giving you as well. So first of all, we'll go through kind of managing your outstanding projects. And I'll go through some kind of organizational skills, setting goals, creating timetables. And then I'll move on to more kind of exam-based supports, such as like memory strategies, focusing on multiple choice questions, exam environment, how to set up a helpful environment at home for yourselves. And then Loreto will take over and she'll go through kind of open book exams, essay writing, and she actually has a sample essay that she's going to bring you through and kind of break it down into sections and show you how to answer it. And then she'll describe kind of critical thinking. So it's really important that critical thinking is kind of embedded throughout your essays. And that would go for both kind of assignment-based essays that you have a few weeks to complete, and also your kind of open book exams as well. And then she'll just flag some kind of stressors that you might experience during your exams, such as internet going, etc., and what to do in that case. And then some just kind of general self-care tips as well. Great. Thanks very much. So you guys probably have a mix of kind of essays to be writing for your final projects, or some of you might have some more kind of practical projects, such as making animation films, working on art projects. In either case, you really need to kind of check your brief and make sure you're reading it thoroughly. So you need to consider what the criteria is and where your marks are going for your project. So that means kind of paying attention to any sections of your project that are worth more marks, and that will help inform you on what time to kind of allocate to working on each kind of section of the project. And it'll also kind of inform you on word count if you haven't been given a kind of strict word count as well. And then you want to make sure you get organized in terms of your workspace, know when your deadlines are, and we'll go through kind of setting goals and creating a timetable as well. And then I'll just flag the Pomodoro Technique, which can be helpful for focusing, and a couple of apps which might be helpful for you guys over the next few weeks. And I'll just highlight the go-to guide for hybrid learning as well, so you guys are aware of that. So you need to set up your workspace, I suppose, first of all. So hopefully you guys have a kind of workspace that's actually working for you at the moment. But just keep in mind, it's helpful to have it as distraction-free as possible. So that means kind of having it organized in terms of like decluttering your desk space, or if you're working at the kitchen table or wherever your kind of workspace is, to have it organized as much as you can. And just keep in mind to keep the noise to a minimum. So, if you're kind of living in a noisy kind of place, maybe you can hear the traffic outside, maybe there's kids running around, and to maybe invest in kind of headphones or something else, or listen to music to kind of just focus on your work for the next few weeks. And then you want to make sure that your phone is either turned off or your notifications are switched off as well, to avoid that kind of distracting you. Creating a to-do list is really helpful, so that will help you kind of come up with your priorities and to keep in mind your deadlines for the next day, the week, the month. And once you have a to-do list, it's really easy to kind of make your goals out of those tasks. And once you have your goals, you can put them into your timetable and make it really specific. And then also taking breaks and making sure you kind of move around frequently is really important. So balance is key, and you want to take a 5 or 10 minute break every hour. Just to move around, kind of get tea or coffee, get outside as much as you can, and just take a step back. And that will really help kind of your general sense of well-being and help you kind of keep your productivity levels up as well. And then using incentives can be really helpful. So that's anything that you can reward yourself with after you've kind of achieved a small goal, or maybe you've achieved kind of writing half of your essay, or you've completed one of your assignments. Having something that you can look forward to, whether it's something as small as kind of enjoying a couple of hours of Netflix, maybe in the evening if you've done all your study that day, a bar of chocolate to kind of keep going throughout the day if you've achieved writing maybe 200 words, or organizing kind of time with your friends and family, anything that will help kind of get you through the next while. So setting SMART goals. So some of you guys might be aware of SMART goals, but basically it's just an acronym for setting small kind of achievable goals. So you want to make sure your goals are specific, they're measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So specific means to pick a specific task that you're going to work on. So I have an example over here, and it says begin introduction for an assignment or a project, whatever the case is. And then you want to make sure it's measurable. So that means it's quantifiable in some way, so you know when you've achieved that goal. So I have an example here. I will write 200 words, so you will know exactly when you kind of achieved that goal. And then is it attainable? So you need to make sure it's attainable and achievable for yourself. So can you kind of manage writing 200 words? Do you need to do a bit of research before you're actually able to write anything? Do you need to kind of extend the time that you're working on it to actually meet those 200 words? So that's kind of specific to each individual. Some people will be able to write 200 words in an hour. Some people need a bit more time, and that's totally fine. Is it relevant? So is the small goal relevant to your long-term goals? So in this case, it is, because you're working towards your deadlines that are coming up over the next few weeks. So it's absolutely relevant. And then the time bound is just to give it a specific time that you're going to work on it. So for example, tonight from 6 to 9. So I put together this sample timetable for you guys. So I've just kind of completed the end of this week. So you can see there I put in 5 to 6, which is the webinar that's happening right now. And I've just put in other kind of suggestions just to give you the general gist of how to kind of put your timetable together and to really break it down into small manageable goals. So I've suggested tonight that you might gather all of your briefs and just take note of your deadlines, set some goals, and create your timetable. And then tomorrow I've class time kind of scheduled, but I'm aware some of you guys might have class at the moment or over the next couple of days. And then I've got, time allocated to reading your briefs, creating an outline for an essay, for example, and then reading one chapter or article and kind of spending time analysing that and summarising that information. And then over the weekend, you can see I've kind of allocated 2 hours to writing 200 words. So it's really kind of breaking it down as much as you can. So if anyone would like a template, I have this exact template in a Word document, and I'm happy to send it on to anyone who wants it. But we have loads of kind of sample timetable templates on our go-to guide as well. So this is one technique which might be helpful for kind of focusing for you guys. So it's called the Pomodoro Technique. And basically what you do is you decide one specific task that you're going to work on. And then you set a timer for 25 minutes and you just work on this one task for 25 minutes. And then you get a 5-minute break after that. And then you go back and do another round of 25 minutes. So this can be really helpful if you're finding it hard to focus for long periods of time. And I suppose it is based on research that suggests that people can only effectively concentrate on something for 25 minutes. And after that, your attention tends to kind of drift away and where you get distracted more easily. So at that point, it's a good time to take a break. There's loads of apps that do this. The Forest app is a nice app, yeah, just there. So if you can see on the bottom right hand corner, that's the Forest app. And you can set a timer on your phone using this app, and it will grow a little tree in the background. Um, and then it factors in taking a break as well once you've achieved kind of your set time limit. So that can be helpful. There's other apps which I thought I'd just flag here as well. So Motivate is a daily motivational kind of quote app. It's got some helpful kind of videos and things like that to keep you motivated. And then Happify just kind of monitors your stress and worry, and it's got some helpful kind of tips and links within that app. And then Headspace, you guys might be familiar with. It's a sleep and meditation app and can be really helpful for those kind of 5-minute breaks, just to kind of help with your general kind of sense of well-being and to relax for yourselves as well. So this is our go-to guide for hybrid learning, which is available on Blackboard. And so all students and all staff should be able to access this. And it's located within short courses on Blackboard. And I'll pop in the link to the chat just at the end as well. So we've divided it up into 5 different modules. So the first one is preparing yourself for hybrid learning. So kind of going through setting up your workspace, highlight some helpful kind of study habits to work on at home, etc. Then the next one is working together online. So it's got some helpful strategies for working in groups, etc. Then the third one's more about managing your time in college. So it's got more detailed information on kind of the general time management tips I've been giving you today. And then the fourth one is building skills for college success. So it's got more specific academic skills. So, you know, thesis writing, essay writing, referencing, proofreading, presentation skills, and all of that. And then the fifth one is looking after yourself in college. So just got some helpful tips on maintaining your own kind of mental health and well-being, and some helpful self-care tips as well. So now I'm going to go on to the memory strategies. If you can just go back one there, Loreto. Thank you very much. So number one, you want to make sure that you understand the information that you're trying to memorize, so that you can make sense of it. So you really need to do that in order to be able to memorize any information. It's really helpful if you understand it at a basic kind of level. So you might do lots of reading, you might watch some YouTube clips on a theory, whatever you need to do, just make sure you kind of make sense of it. And then you can organize the information, so make meaningful associations with similar theories, concepts, whatever it is. So rote memorization is basically learning things off by heart. So this is something we may have tried to do in second level, or we've all probably experienced it in some way. So it's not as helpful as some of the other strategies. So what can be helpful, according to research, is remembering like number of points that you need to remember. So like if there's 5 concepts in relation to a theory or something like that, that would be okay to memorize or learn off by heart. But it's not really helpful to kind of learn off sentences or definitions by heart, because it just doesn't stay kind of in your brain, if you like, as easily as the other ones. So there's a bunch of mnemonic devices, which are basically kind of memory tricks. So I won't go through all of them today, but a couple of them are acronyms. So like the example I've used before, the SMART kind of goals. So that's when you create a word out of key concepts or something like that. So the SMART is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So you can absolutely do that with any of your information that you need to learn off. Chunking is just grouping similar information together. So grouping similar research together, maybe remembering kind of the findings of very similar research. And then look, cover, write, and revise is when you look at some of your notes and then you cover it up and then you just try to write down everything you remember. So that can be a helpful tip as well. And then other people find graphic organizers really helpful, such as mind maps and diagrams and that kind of thing. So it's more of a visual kind of memory tool. Yeah. So then I'll just go run through some tips which can support your memory. So breaks are really, really important. So this allows your brain to consolidate the information that you've been rehearsing. It allows you to take a break, relax, eat, and exercise. So it really kind of helps those neural connections kind of to develop in your brain. So it's really important to factor in breaks as much as you can. And then to maximize your memory, you can distribute it. So that means instead of studying for 15 hours over 2 days, to maybe spread it out to 5 or 6 days. And so even if, you know, one day you mightn't have much time to do like a long kind of study session, just take out your notes for even half an hour, read through them, and that will really help you to kind of memorize that information. Then another tip is just try to schedule study blocks at the same time that your course's exam is scheduled. So if your exam is at 9 o'clock next week, you might want to practice kind of getting up quite early and studying at that time. So it's not kind of a shock to the system then when you have a 9 a.m. exam and maybe every other day you've been kind of sleeping until 12. So that's just a little tip. And studying the hardest material during your peak learning times can be helpful as well. So keep in mind, are you a morning person? Are you an evening person? And to tailor your timetable to kind of suit your kind of style of learning and when best would suit you. So when are you most productive and to study the hardest material at that time? So now I'll just run through some multiple choice questions. So in preparation, you can anticipate and prepare questions. So what terms, definitions, or concepts were in the course title or were frequently used by your lecturer? Or what kind of terms, definitions, and concepts were noted in the comments on assignments? So these are all likely to be on your exam. And then you can make a list, and based on your list, you can make flashcards. So you could include on the flashcards the official definition of terms that are quoted from a text or another source, and then you can paraphrase it in your own words or really kind of break it down and make it as concise as you can. And this will really kind of show or identify if you've understood it, if you can paraphrase it in your own words. And then using a definition by example, so using examples to understand definitions can be really helpful as well. So this technique will ensure that your knowledge is based on understanding and not memorization. If the question posed is in an unexpected way, you can still cope with it because you understand it. And flashcards help the mind to learn how to switch between topics quickly and to recognize the material outside of the context that you were taught it in. So then during the exam, you want to read and answer the questions before reading the choices. So when you come across your multiple choice question, to think if you can come up with the answer before you actually look at the options. So this will help you pick the most accurate kind of choice. And then you want to, I suppose, go through all the questions and answer the ones you absolutely know, first of all, and then code the ones you're not sure of or you need a bit more time to kind of look through the options. And then put an X maybe beside the ones you've no idea about, return to the ones you've questioned, and then do the kind of X ones if time permits then at the end. And try not to get stuck on any question or spend too much time on any question when they're all worth the same marks. Which they might be for your multiple choice question, but be sure to kind of look at how the marks are allocated as well. So now I'll go through the exam environment. Yeah. So you want to establish an exam environment in advance of the exam. So make sure you've removed all clutter kind of on your desk or wherever you're doing the exam and set up your lighting preference. So if you prefer to kind of work in natural light, make sure kind of natural light is coming in. Or if you prefer to kind of work in a more kind of darker space, you know, we might just have a lamp kind of to the side, whatever works for you. And then you want to minimize distractions, especially during an exam situation. So reduce the noise as much as you can. Have a desk facing a blank wall. You could listen to white noise maybe, which might help, and make sure to turn off your phone as well. Ensure you have everything you need before you start. So make sure you've had food before you start the exam and have water and a pen and paper ready. And also make sure your laptop is fully charged and your charger is plugged in and kind of ready to go if you need it. And then, of course, you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, and make sure you're using kind of your self-care skills before and after the exam as well. Then during the exam, so having a plan for how you tackle an exam can make a big difference. So here are some things you can try. So aim to stay calm and relaxed so you can think. And Loreto is going to be going through a little mindfulness session thing that you can think about if you do feel a bit anxious during your exam. But just try to breathe as much as you can in the anxiety-provoking situation, which are exams, but just keep that in mind. So jot down how much time then you think you'll need for each set of questions, and stick to your time, your planned time budget as much as possible. Read the instructions and questions carefully. So you need to read each question at least twice before you answer it. So I suppose many students have lost marks because they've misread kind of questions and instructions. So just be sure you know what you're answering. And watch out for qualifying words such as not, some, or most of the time. Doing a memory dump can be helpful at the very start of an exam. So if there's any theories or concepts you've learned, or any information that you're afraid you'll kind of forget, be sure to kind of write it down at the start of the exam so you're not worrying about it later on. And do the questions you know first to build confidence. And finally, review your answers before handing in your exam to catch any mistakes, and ensure you've answered the questions thoroughly and clearly. And now I'm going to pass you over to Loreto, if that's okay, Loreto. The next slide.
That's
Perfect.
Great. So can you hear me?
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to cover a little bit about, so Jade has looked at multiple choice questions. So I'm going to look at kind of the open book exams. I think the majority of people are doing open book exams. So while you're allowed to check your notes and any of the resources you have, you won't have a huge amount of time. So you need to be just as prepared for an open book exam as you are for a closed book exam. So that's the first thing to say there. Know your lecturer's expectations. So over the last couple of weeks and over the next couple of weeks, go to all the classes and listen to what the lecturers are saying. I think most of the lecturers have probably given mock exams at this stage or given you a sample paper, and just to kind of let you know what's going to, you know, sort of things that are going to come up. So that in itself will reduce the stress levels. Okay. So in an open book exam, you know, you'll have access obviously to the internet and different things. What the lecturer doesn't want you to do is to be cutting and pasting chunks of information. They want you to engage with the information, and they want you to analyze it and critically evaluate it and discuss it. So if you want to maximize your marks, you need to be doing that. I'm going to bring you through a little bit of an example later on, so that hopefully that'll help you. Okay. My understanding is for at least some of the courses, you'll be uploading the exam to turn it in. So if you have cut and paste huge amounts of information, that's going to be picked up. So that could impact on your marking as well. So to prepare, just flag the important content in your textbook and notes, any of those key concepts. If you've done those mnemonics and you kind of forget what one of the letters stand for, at least know very quickly where to go to in the book, just to kind of remind you. Core text, recorded sessions, Blackboard, library, websites, to just know exactly where everything is before you start the exam. If you have any aids, you know, I don't know if any of you are doing kind of accounting or mathematical exams, but if there's formula sheets or anything like that, make sure you have them to hand. And then if you prepared any mind maps or lists or anything like that, just make sure that they're there so that that you're allowed to use them. It's open book, and just have them to hand. So in the essay type questions, if you haven't had some sample questions from your lecturers, look over past exam papers and mock papers just to get a sense of the types of questions. I'm sure when you were doing your Leaving Cert, you would have used study clicks and you would have gone over past exam papers. It's no different in third level. So, you know, you'll see a pattern. Sometimes the same sort of questions come up time and time again. So, you know, you can be well prepared for most of the questions that are going to be coming up. The lectures, I know back in my day, they drop heavy hints, and if you're listening, they usually come up. So all of those things are going to kind of help you be prepared, and that's going to reduce your stress levels. So then in the exams, and you get your paper, you want to look straight away, how many questions do I have to answer in this exam? Some questions might be mandatory, so you mightn't have a choice. So it might say, answer question 1, and then either question 2, 3, or 4. You know, so again, make sure that you read, take time to read and know. Look at the allocation of marks. So if the marks are equally divided, give them equal time. If there's more marks going for certain questions, make sure you give that extra time, and that you don't spend too much time doing something that's only 10 marks when another question's 60 marks. Sometimes they might give you a word count guide, because again, they don't want pages and pages and pages of information. So typically you probably won't get time to write more than maybe 1,500 words for an essay, and some essays for less marks are probably around 800, 1,000 words. So just try and keep that in mind as well. Then when you get the question, read the question carefully. I'm going to bring you through an example of an example of a question, and just show you how you need to break the question down into its component parts. And then do an outline of the essay. You can see there on the screen, that's just a rough guide. So like any essay that you're writing for, you know, a class assignment, you'll be using the same sort of structure for the exam. So you'll have an introduction. Make sure in the introduction that you address the question so that the examiner knows that you're aware of the question and that you're going to answer it later on, and then break down the question into its component parts. So maybe discuss one part of the question in the first paragraph, the next part of the question in the second paragraph, and then the third. And then pull it all together and make sure that you finish strong, you know, that you've good introduction. That creates a good impression with the examiner. You tell the examiner how you're going to answer the question, and then in the end you pull together what you've discussed and you kind of leave with a good strong finish, and that leaves the examiner with a good sense that you kind of know what you're talking about. All right. I'm just going to, I've picked just one example of, I think this is one of the exams that are going to be essay type exams, strategic human resource management. So the exam is 3 hours, that's 180 minutes, and you only have to answer 2 questions. So say the first question is compulsory, and there's 60 marks for that. So again, just mathematically kind of break it down into the time. And there's a guide there for the essay for around 1,500 words. And then the second question, you have a choice. So pick something that you're confident that you know about. There's 40 marks going for that. So again, breaking it down, probably around an hour for that question and around 1,000 words. So make sure you leave enough time to make sure that you read the question, you plan the essay, and you have time just to go over your answer to make sure you haven't forgotten anything important, and make some changes. Okay, so this is an example of a possible question that might come up. And again, this is strategic HRM. So the question being asked is how strategic HRM can support and enhance the achievement of organizational goals, and what are the key challenges, and how has HR failed to deliver? Okay, so looking at that question, you can break it down into 3 parts. First part being, how can strategic HRM support and enhance the achievement of organizational goals? So you're bringing in your key concepts, your models, your theories, your facts around that, okay? And maybe there's 5 or 6 theories. You could choose to just focus on the 2 main ones. You know, it's up to you, just as long as you say that in your introduction. You might maybe name off the 5 models, but you might say, for the purposes of this essay, I'm just going to focus on these 2, you know. So the second part of that question is, what are the key challenges? So there's no point writing 2 or 3 pages on the first part if you forget to write about the key challenges. And then the third part is, how has HR failed to deliver? So you've got to address that as well. So again, if you spend all of your time on the first part of the essay and you don't address the second part, you know, again, your lecturer has probably told you how the marks are being broken up. But there could be 20 marks for each of those subsections. And if you don't address 2 of them, well, that's only 20 out of 60 straight away, even if you get, you know, really good answer on the first part. So that's why it's really important to spend some time reading the paper. Make sure you highlight all the different kind of parts of the question that you're being asked and make sure you cover them. Okay. So then, you know, I showed you the outline. So again, just have a rough, that's only one example. You probably have your own way. Some people like mind maps, some people like lists. So whatever works for you, just plan your essay and you know, if I go back there to that other one, what are the main facts around the topic? If there's any quotes you want to bring in, and then what's your argument? You know, what point are you trying to make? Do you agree with the research? Do you not agree with the research? Is there conflicting evidence in the research? So that's where you're kind of getting more into the discussion and the critical analysis, and you're moving away from just cutting and pasting information or giving back the lecturer the notes that the lecturer has given you. Okay, and then, you know, when you've finished your 3 paragraphs, then you're going to draw a conclusion. You're going to pull together the main points of your argument. And as I said earlier, just finish strong so that you leave the examiner with a good sense that you've addressed the question. So always keep in mind the question, even if you have to write it and stick it up in front of you, and keep looking at it and going, is what I'm writing down answering the question I've been asked? That's really important. Okay. So that, yeah, so that's just, again, just the essay sample there, just a template. Okay. So I'm just going to do a very short piece on critical thinking. There's a couple of notes and presentations on the go-to guide if you want to, or, you know, there's lots of resources online. So this is really just a very short synopsis. So critical thinking means carefully examining the research on a subject. So, for example, strategic HRM. So what is the weight of evidence for and against, you know, the topic? Are the conclusions of the research correct? So if so, in the question on how strategic HRM can support and enhance the achievement of organizational goals, you need to present the models. You need to discuss the advantages, disadvantages of each, the arguments for and against, and in a discursive way. And you're trying to be objective. So even if you don't agree with them all, you have to present the models with an open mind, you know, and then just rather than taking a firm position when you're arguing it. And then use your skill of reasoning backed up by carefully selected evidence to make a case for and against whatever the question you've been asked to address. Point out the advantages, disadvantages of the given context, and then remember to arrive at a conclusion. So at the end, when you've presented all the information, pull it together and conclude. Does it, you know, addressing the question being asked? So in a nutshell, use what you know to argue a case which relates directly to the question. So that's just a few little ideas there on critical thinking. Okay, so now we're just going to finish off with a little bit of stress management. You know, what sort of stressors could you come up with on the day of the exam? I suppose with remote learning, internet issues can be a big stressor for students. So I'm going to bring you through, you know, the backup plan if you have those. And I suppose knowing what the backup plan, it will help you not to get too stressed about it, because you know where to go and they'll find a solution for your issues. So if you have internet issues, there's a plan in place, and I'll go through it and you'll be getting information around that. So don't be too stressed about that. I suppose one of the stressors that a lot of us have when we go into an exam or an interview or anything challenging like that is dealing with unhelpful thoughts. You know, and our thoughts and feelings and behavior, they're really closely linked. So just one example of some of the thoughts you might have, you know, that you might be worried that something unexpected will come up and you won't be able to answer it. So then you start feeling anxious and nervous. And when you're anxious and nervous, the brain doesn't function because you're in survival mode. So that your executive functioning isn't kind of working to the optimum, and you might just blank on the test. So we don't want that happening. So again, I'm going to bring you through a little bit of a mindfulness meditation that hopefully will help you to move away from those unhelpful thoughts and bring you back to focusing on what you're doing, whether it's preparing for the exam or actually doing the exam when you're in the situation. So the mindfulness exercise is called Planning versus Imagination. And then there's a little YouTube video there which you can go to. It's called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. And that is just a nice, short little mindfulness exercise that can help ground you if you find that you're getting overwhelmed. So it's bringing you out of your thoughts and bringing you back into your senses. So it's what you're doing there is you're focusing on 5 things that you can see around you, 4 things that you can hear. And remember, when you're doing this exercise, to keep breathing in and out, because the breathing, it will help you relax and help you feel not so stressed. The 3 things then are 3 things you can touch. So it might be just even the, you know, the trousers you're wearing, the t-shirt, whatever. 2 things you can smell. So maybe you have a cup of coffee beside yourself, or you know, you have a nice hand cream on. And then 1 thing you can taste. You might have had a cup of coffee before the exam just to kind of boost you, and you might be able to taste that. So that brings you out of your head and into your senses, and that is what's called a grounding technique. Okay, so I'm going to hand over now to Rebecca. She's going to take over the presenting here. Is going to play just that short kind of meditation. So let me just get my cursor here. So
one great way to reduce stress when preparing for an examination is to make a distinction between planning and imagining. For example, if you're making a study plan to take you through from now to the start of the exams, your imagination may want you to have all sorts of thoughts about things that could go wrong, about what you might do after the exams, about whether or not you've studied hard enough up to now, etc. But that is all imagination. And when you notice that happening, what you do is simply bring your attention back to what you're doing, which is making a study plan. The same applies to planning how you might answer a particular question if it comes up. Once again, your imagination may want to say, oh my God, what if that question doesn't come up? What if such and such another question comes up, and so on. That's just imagination. What you need to do is simply bring your attention back to the work of planning how you are going to answer the question, if it does come up. This can apply also even in the exam itself. You might be looking at the paper or looking at a particular question and having all sorts of thoughts and imaginings about it. But really what you need to do is to bring your mind back calmly to the business of answering the question. So this is a mindfulness practice, really, that of coming out of what your fears and your imagination are telling you and bringing it back to what you're doing right now. Of course, you may have to do that again and again because the imagination is always active, but it is worth practicing this, and it will make the road to the examination much easier for you.
Back on the screen? No, here we go. Can you see my screen now?
I can, yeah, Loreto.
Yeah, great. I'm just going to go back. I forgot before we did that little mindfulness technique, just to briefly bring you through what to do if you have any internet problems on the day. So Celine Blackow in the exams office, she'll be on call during the exams. If Blackboard freezes, crashes, students are to contact her, and she will contact ICT in order to sort out any issues like that. In the case of your internet or electricity going out, there's not a lot you can do other than contact Celine. Just let her know your situation. You only really need to be online actually to download the paper and upload the paper. So you don't need to be, say for example, your exam is 3 hours long. You don't need to be online for those 3 hours. So as long as you download the paper, do it and upload it, you probably only need to be on the internet for a very short time. The exams are going to be 3 hours long instead of the usual 2 hours, and that should give extra time if there's any technical difficulties. And then Celine's email address is celineblackow@idt.ie. So please don't be stressed around anything around internet. You know, if it happens, Celine will work with you to find a solution. Okay. So then, hopefully, one exam, 2 exams, or all your exams will be over. But after each exam, take a break. We slide here, 50 ways to take a break. So I suppose for some people, it might be going out for a swim. For somebody else, it might be just, you know, having a coffee break. Get some food, take a nap, whatever you need to do to kind of de-stress, relax after the exam. Try not to do an exam post-mortem because you can't change what you've written at that stage. So there's no point dwelling on it. Believe me, I've been there, done that, and it's not worth it. If you have more exams to do, then you just follow your study schedule, whether it's later on that day or the next day, just to get back in preparing for the next exam. And then if you don't have any more exams, well, then enjoy your time off college. So I hope for all of you and all of us, we actually get to have a really nice summer out and about, meeting friends and trying to get back to some sort of normality. And for those of you returning next year, I hope we get to meet each other on campus as opposed to online. So that's kind of a quick run through various parts of the exams, from getting a study plan to preparing for MCQs, essay writing and stress management. So we hope we've covered you know, a lot of the queries you might have. If there's any questions in the chat, maybe Rebecca, you might read them out to us and we'll see if we can answer them.
Yeah, I can field some questions there. Rachel, I just think before, would you like to do the SU resources before or after the questions?
I can do them now. I'll just get them out of the way. So just thanking Loreto and Jade for that. It was great presentation. Obviously you can go to them for any one-on-one sessions. You might need any extra help, not just during exam periods, but during the year when you guys come back, if you're coming back. Or even just now ahead of the exams. And obviously myself, I'm here for any education questions you might have. If you're stressed, if you just need to rant or something like that, or you're like, I don't know what to do, how do I get in contact with Jade or Loreto? You can always come to me and talk to me through email, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, it's fine, I don't mind. And like Loreto said, Celine will be on call throughout the exam period every day, and you can contact her through celine.blackout@iigt.e, and she will figure out a solution for you. So I'll hand over to Louisa for the questions.
Great. And just can you see on the screen our contact details there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's our contact details. And look, for those of you who maybe have to defer or repeat, we are working through the summer, so we'll be here during the summer if you need any support as well. So not just this end of the term, but myself and Jade will be working through the summer. All right. So will I stop sharing my screen, guys?
Yeah, you can do if you like.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Okay. Thank you so much. And also, this session has been recorded as well and will be posted on the Final Year Mars Moving On social media. So if there's anything you thought you missed or anything like that, you can go ahead and we'll be popping it up as soon as we can. Perfect. So we have a question here. This person said, I feel like the quality of my work is suffering because of stress. Can I approach my lecturer about getting more feedback?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure. I don't know what course the person's in, but do they have like a year tutor or?
They didn't mention. I'm sure they do.
Every year should have a year tutor that they can go to, or if it's one specific lecturer, they can definitely go to that lecturer and say, is there anything else you can give me a little bit of extra feedback on? What have I been falling down on this year, and what have I been doing really well? Because also you might be focusing completely on the negatives, but you have been doing great work throughout this whole year. I mean, I'd say that to every student. Like, you've gotten through one of the weirdest years ever.
Absolutely. Once in a lifetime. The other thing is, if you want us to look over anything that you've done, myself and Jade can do that as well. And that's not a problem. Even if you want to come to us first, just for us to have an impartial look at it, and then you could go and talk to the lecturer as well. Is that okay?
Perfect. Thank you so much. So we have another one here. When will we get our marks? So results, when will they be published?
I think it's June, is it?
It'll be June. So the exams are running from the 4th of May till the 14th, and then in early June, early to mid-June, depending on the department you're in. Sorry if you just heard a message go off on my screen. Depending on what department you're in, you'll be getting your results back in either early to mid-June. So around then, you'll be getting an email from probably Celine in the exams office, just to remind you that the exam results are out, and it'll go up on our social media as well. So we'll post that exams have been released, results have been published.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So just about open book exams, if someone doesn't have a textbook and they just have slides or individual articles, they're just asking, should they ask the lecturer if they recommend additional reading, or is there any other pathways they could take?
Yeah, they could do that. I would say look on the IGT library and see if there's any textbook that they can actually access. Sometimes online as well, you can access like a chapter, a few different pages of different textbooks as well. So I would definitely kind of look and see if you can get one of the main textbooks. If there's anything else they would recommend. Other than that, I think articles are great for references in general. So if most of them are articles, I would think that's absolutely fine.
Yeah. And most of the lecturers will probably have given you some core texts for the subject. Yeah. So again, going back to strategic HRM, they probably identified core texts or core articles that you need to read, and then supplementary reading, so at least if you have the core text, that's fine, and then there's additional reading. I know for myself, I've been doing some research myself, and there's loads of books, ebooks that you can get on the library. So, you know, you could have a textbook on your laptop, because you don't have to be online for the 3 hours, you know. So, you know, have all of that ready, and when you're doing your revision, know exactly where the books are and if they're available, you know, if you can't actually get the textbook themselves.
If you're struggling with access, the library are great. They have click and collect open every day now from Monday to Friday if you want to order a book online. Also, they have updated, they've added so many ebooks, but also if you need just a section of an art journal article or a passage in a book, like you just need chapter 3, you don't need the whole book. They will do scan and deliver, where they will scan it and email it out to you. And if you're living further than the greater South Dublin area, or even if you just live more than like 20 minutes down the road, they can post the books out to you as well. They also do postal deliveries, which is great this year. And don't worry about, if you live really close by to IDT, you can drop them into an orange return box by the caretaker's desk. And if you live far away like me in Wexford, they're working with On Post to get a prepaid packaged delivery back, so it won't cost you anything to return them as well.
Great.
So just to let everyone.
That's one of the advantages of the pandemic is, I know when I was back in college, it's very hard to get your hands on those books when it came up to exams, because somebody had borrowed it and then it wasn't coming back. So the fact that the ebooks are available, you know, you can get access to those. So if the library are brilliant. So if you're finding it difficult to find a book, contact the library and they'll kind of help you. And that's another de-stressor. You know, there's support out there, so reach out. Yeah.
That's excellent. That's a really excellent service. That's brilliant to hear. So we have another one here. My lecturer doesn't record their lectures. Can I request this to be done?
Okay, I can feel that. Some lecturers don't like having themselves recorded, but you can request them, and they might say yes, they might say no. I know back in the background in teaching and learning, we're working on trying to get a recording policy, but it's taking a little bit longer than we would have liked. But you can definitely ask your lecturer to see if they'll record it for you. Just say that you're struggling a bit and your attention span is it's getting a bit drained, you know, from bouncing from one lecture to another, and a lot of screen time. Everybody's attention span is kind of going out, and also it's getting brighter and people are getting distracted by the sunshine, because I know I am. So definitely ask them.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And we have one final question here. It's about proofreading. So after I finish writing an essay, I struggle to proofread. Can I send it into the Student Learning Centre? Is that something I can do?
No. Well, I'd say yes and no. Okay, but we prefer to have a session with somebody, because we're not proofreaders. I suppose our goal is to equip students with the skills to do this for themselves, and to be able to find even friends or other students who might help them, you know. So if you find that you're not great at, you know, you kind of make mistakes, spelling, structure, whatever, it's always good to get somebody to read over. So but there's a short video on the Go-To Guide for Hybrid Learning on how to proofread. But for that person, I would suggest having a meeting with us, maybe a couple of meetings, and we'll go through some stuff with them and give them some strategies. But we don't have a service where you just kind of email us something and get it back, because I don't think that's helpful to the student. You know, it would be great if you could do that, but we're more interested in kind of giving people the skills to do this for themselves and to build it in, you know. So that's not
Brilliant.
a no, but you know, I really would prefer people if they engage with us and we can have the conversation. So just because I'm saying no, I don't want them to go away. You know, I'd like to go through it with them, and I kind of teach them how, you know, the different ways they can do it. All right.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Well, that concludes our question section, and we're coming up to the end of our session this evening. Thank you so much again. That was amazing, informative, and it will be up, as I said, on our social media. I will we'll be popping up all the resources and the links and everything like that, how you can get in touch with the Student Centre and with Rachel as well. And again, thank you so much for the session. And so next week we have Return of the Grads 2.0. We have some alumni coming and joining us for a good chat on how they're getting on, what they've been up to, and how they're handling this truly crazy world that's going on. And yeah, so please tune in next week. Thank you all again so much for joining us. And yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Louisa. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you to everybody who joined us this evening. I hope we were of some help.